My name's Regina, and I became a single mom when my daughter, Mia, was just 10. My ex-husband, Tom, decided he'd found greener pastures with another woman. Just like that, he was gone, leaving me to pick up the pieces of our shattered family. From that day on, it was just the two of us. I threw myself into work, determined to give Mia everything she needed. I climbed the corporate ladder, worked overtime, took on extra projects, anything to make sure my little girl wouldn't want for anything. The trauma of abandonment hit Mia hard. She became withdrawn, angry. Her grades started slipping, and she'd lash out at the slightest provocation. I was at my wit's end, trying to be both mom and dad, provider and nurturer. Finally, I decided to take her to a psychologist. Dr. Sarah was kind and patient, but even she struggled with Mia's anger. "Your daughter's dealing with a lot of pain," she told me after one particularly difficult session. "It's going to take time, Regina. Be patient with her." Years passed, and things got better, or so I thought. Mia seemed to be healing, growing into a beautiful, intelligent young woman. But there was an undercurrent of resentment that I couldn't quite place. It wasn't until I started trying to date again that I realized the full extent of the damage Tom had done. Every time I'd meet someone new, someone who might actually be interested in me as more than just Mia's mom, she'd fly off the handle. The first time it happened, I was blindsided. I'd been seeing Mark for a few weeks, and things were going well. He was kind, funny, and he seemed to genuinely care about me. I thought it was time for him to meet Mia. "Honey," I said one morning over breakfast. "I've invited someone over for dinner tonight. His name's Mark, and I want the two most important people in my life to know each other." She stared at me, her eyes narrowing. "Is he your boyfriend or something?" I hesitated, not sure how to answer. "We'd been seeing each other, yes. But it's not serious yet. That's why I want you to meet him." "No," she said flatly. "I don't want to meet him. I don't want him in our house. Cancel the dinner." I was shocked. "Mia, sweetie, I know this might be difficult for you, but..." "Difficult?" she shouted, standing up so suddenly, her chair fell backward. "You think this is difficult? You want to abandon me like he did? To start a new family and forget all about me?" She stormed out of the kitchen, leaving me alone with my cold coffee and a sinking feeling in my stomach. I should have known then that this was just the beginning. Despite Mia's outburst, I decided to go ahead with the dinner. I thought maybe if she met Mark, she'd see he wasn't a threat. God, was I wrong? Mark arrived at 7, looking nervous but eager. I introduced him to Mia, who barely looked at him. "Nice to meet you, Mia," he said, extending his hand. "Your mom's told me a lot about you." Mia ignored his hand. "I bet she has," she muttered. The tension was thick as we sat down to eat. I tried to keep the conversation light, but Mia's one-word answers and glares made it difficult. Halfway through the meal, Mark made an innocent comment about how nice it was to have a home-cooked dinner. That's when Mia exploded. "Oh, I'm sure you'd love to have this all the time, wouldn't you?" she sneered. "Playing happy families with my mom?" "Mia," I warned, but she was just getting started. "What, Mom? Isn't that what this is? You trying to replace Dad? Trying to throw me away like he did?" "That's not what this is at all," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm just trying to..." "To what? To ruin everything?" Mia stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Well, guess what? I won't let you." Before I could react, she grabbed her plate and hurled it to the floor. The crash of breaking china was deafening in the sudden silence. "Mia," I gasped. "What are you doing?" But she wasn't listening. She grabbed another plate, then another, smashing them on the ground. Food and broken dishes were everywhere. "This is our home," she screamed. "Ours, not his." Mark stood up, looking shell-shocked. "I think I should go," he said quietly. After Mark left, Mia locked herself in her room. I spent the night cleaning up the mess, tears mixing with the soapy water as I scrubbed the floor. The next day, Mia acted like nothing had happened. But something had changed. From that day on, any attempt I made to date was met with hostility and tantrums. Years passed, and I found myself pushing away anyone who showed interest in me. It was easier than dealing with Mia's reactions. I told myself it was temporary, that once Mia was older, she'd understand. But deep down, I knew I was just making excuses. When Mia graduated high school, I was so proud. Despite everything, she'd done well in school and gotten into a good college. I thought maybe now, things would change. "Mom," she said the night before she left for college, you won't bring anyone home while I'm gone, will you?" I sighed. "Mia, honey, you're going to be living your own life now. Don't you think it's time for me to do the same?" Her face darkened. "So you are planning to replace me?" "Mia, please," I begged. "That's not fair. I've spent the last 8 years putting you first. I've given up everything for you." As soon as the words left my mouth, I knew I'd made a mistake. Mia's eyes filled with tears. "So I'm just a burden to you, is that it?" she cried. "A sacrifice you had to make?" "No, sweetie, that's not what I meant at all." I tried to backtrack, but it was too late. Mia stormed off to her room, slamming the door behind her. The next morning, she left for college without saying goodbye. With Mia away at college, I finally had a chance to rediscover myself. I started taking better care of myself, got a new haircut, bought some new clothes, even joined a gym. I reconnected with old friends, started going out more. And then I met David. He was kind, funny, and understood my situation with Mia. We started dating, and for a while, everything was perfect. But Mia, even from college, still tried to control my life. Every call, every visit home, she'd grill me about my social life. "Mom, you haven't let anyone into our house, have you?" she'd demand. I tried to reason with her. "Honey, you're living your own life now. Don't you think it's time I did the same?" But she'd get angry, threaten to drop out of college, say she couldn't focus on her studies, knowing I was replacing her. Once, after finding out about David, she called me in tears. "How could you do this to me? My grades are suffering because I'm so upset about you dating." It was exhausting, constantly walking on eggshells, trying to balance my happiness with Mia's demands. But I kept hoping things would get better once she graduated and started her own life. 4 years passed in this push and pull. Then, out of the blue, Mia called. "Mom, I'm coming home. And I'm bringing someone with me." My heart leapt. Maybe she'd finally found someone and understood why I'd wanted to date. Maybe now, things would change. When they arrived, I was shocked. Mia introduced the man beside her not as her boyfriend, but as her husband. "This is Jake," she said, a challenging look in her eyes. "We got married last week in Vegas." I couldn't believe it. My daughter was married, and I hadn't even known she was dating someone. "Mia," I gasped, "why didn't you tell me? Why wasn't I invited?" She shrugged. "We only met a few days ago. It was spontaneous." They didn't stay long. As they were leaving, I hugged Mia tightly. "I hope you'll be very happy," I whispered, trying to ignore the knot of worry in my stomach. For 6 months, I heard little from Mia. I tried to give them space, hoping they were settling into married life. Then, one rainy night, Mia showed up at my door, mascara streaking down her face. "He cheated on me," she sobbed. "I found him with another woman. We're getting divorced." Mia moved back in, quickly found a job, but showed no signs of looking for her own place. And I, remembering how she'd reacted to my attempts at independence, didn't push her. I was 46, Mia was 24, and we were settled into an uneasy coexistence when the doctor delivered the news that shattered our world. I had intestinal cancer. The diagnosis hit me like a freight train. Cancer. The word alone was terrifying. When I told Mia, she broke down in tears. "Mom," she sobbed, clinging to me, "I'll take care of you. I promise. We'll get through this together." In that moment, all our past conflicts seemed to melt away. I quit my job, thankful for the savings I'd squirreled away over the years. At least we wouldn't have to worry about money on top of everything else. The chemotherapy started, and with it came a host of new challenges. I was constantly exhausted, nauseous, and in pain. Mia took time off work to care for me, and at first, she was attentive and enthusiastic. But as the days wore on, the reality of my condition began to wear on her. The cancer had wreaked havoc on my digestive system. I struggled to use the bathroom, often needing help to clean myself afterward. It was humiliating, but I had no choice. After particularly rough chemo sessions, I'd be too weak to even make it to the toilet. I started noticing changes in Mia's behavior. The loving concern in her eyes was gradually replaced by something else, disgust. She'd wrinkle her nose when she came near me, complaining about the smell. "Mom, you stink," she'd say, not even trying to hide her revulsion. "Can't you do something about it?" I wanted to scream at her, to remind her that I was fighting for my life, that I couldn't control what the cancer and chemo were doing to my body. But I bit my tongue. She was trying, in her own way, and that had to be enough. One day, after a particularly difficult morning, Mia approached me with a determined look on her face. "Mom, I think I need to go back to work," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "We should hire a nurse to take care of you." I nodded, trying to hide my disappointment. "I understand. We'll look into getting a nurse." The clinic where I was receiving treatment assigned a nurse named Sarah to help me at home. She was a godsend, strong, capable, and unfailingly kind. She handled my hygiene needs efficiently and without a trace of disgust. "Don't you worry, Regina," she'd say cheerfully as she helped me clean up. "We'll have you feeling fresh as a daisy in no time." With Sarah's help, my quality of life improved dramatically. But Mia wasn't happy about the arrangement. "I don't like having a stranger in our house all the time," she complained. "It's invasive." I tried to explain that Sarah was necessary for my care, but Mia wouldn't listen. Then, one evening, she dropped a bombshell. "Mom, I've been thinking," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "Maybe it would be better if you moved to a specialized care facility. I could look after the house, and you'd get round-the-clock care." I stared at her, shocked. "No, I'm not leaving my home. This is where I'm comfortable, and this is where I'm going to fight this cancer." Mia's face clouded over with anger and frustration. "Fine," she snapped. "Have it your way." As she stormed off, I felt a deep sadness settle over me. I was fighting for my life, but it felt like I was losing my daughter in the process. As the chemo treatments continued, my body waged war against itself. Each day brought new challenges, new indignities. But nothing prepared me for the day my hair started falling out in clumps. I was in the bathroom, running my fingers through my long, once beautiful hair, when a handful came away in my palm. I stared at it, numb with shock. Mia's shriek jolted me back to reality. "Mom, there's hair everywhere. I'm sick of cleaning it up." I looked at her, standing in the doorway, her face twisted in disgust and frustration. In that moment, I made a decision. "Sarah," I called weakly to my nurse. "Could you please cut my hair?" As Sarah carefully sheared away my locks, I caught sight of Mia in the mirror. Instead of offering support or comfort, she was laughing. "You look like an alien," she snickered. "Maybe you should get a wig." Her words cut deeper than any surgeon's scalpel. That night, after Sarah had gone home and Mia had retreated to her room, I cried silently into my pillow. Where had I gone wrong? How had my sweet little girl turned into this cruel stranger? Weeks passed, and I continued my battle against cancer. Every day was a struggle, but I was determined to fight. Then, one afternoon, Mia dropped another bombshell. "Mom, I'm having some friends over for my birthday next week," she announced casually. I blinked in surprise. "Here? Honey, I don't think that's a good idea." The noise. "I need rest." Mia's face hardened. "If you don't like it, you can go somewhere else for the night." Actually, that might be better. I won't have to be embarrassed by you in front of my friends or deal with the smell. Her words hit me like a physical blow. I'd been bedridden for days, barely able to move. But in that moment, fury gave me strength. I pushed myself up, fixing her with a glare that would have made my own mother proud. "This is my house," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "If you don't like living here with me, you're welcome to leave." Mia's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed in anger. "You're so selfish," she screamed. "All you think about is yourself. You know what? It would be better for everyone if you just died already. Then you'd stop being such an inconvenience to everyone around you." The room fell silent. I stared at my daughter, unable to believe the words that had just come out of her mouth. In her eyes, I saw no trace of the little girl I'd raised, no hint of love or compassion. Just cold, hard anger. "Get out," I shouted, surprising even myself with the force in my voice. "Pack your things and get out of my house. Now." For a moment, Mia just stood there, shocked. Then, with a scream of frustration, she stormed off to her room. I could hear her throwing things into bags, slamming drawers. Minutes later, she stormed past me, bags in hand. "I hate you," she spat as she reached the door. "I wish Dad had taken me with him when he left." And then she was gone, the front door slamming behind her. She didn't even bother to close it properly. The open door mocked me, a glaring reminder of Mia's dramatic exit. I sat there, staring at it, feeling utterly drained. Finally, I reached for my phone with shaking hands and dialed my friend, Linda. "Linda," I croaked when she answered. "I need help. Can you come over?" Linda arrived in record time, concern etched on her face. She closed the door, then rushed to my side. "Regina, what happened?" The whole story poured out of me, Mia's cruelty, her harsh words, her abrupt departure. Linda listened, her face a mix of shock and anger. "Oh, Regina," she sighed when I finished. "You need to forget about that ungrateful girl and focus on yourself. You're fighting cancer, for God's sake." We talked for hours, tears flowing freely between us. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the living room, I came to a painful realization. "It's my fault," I whispered. "I raised her to be this way. I always put her needs first, ignored my own. I thought I was being a good mother, but I was just teaching her to be selfish. From now on, I'm going to be selfish. I'm going to think about myself for once." True to my word, I threw myself into my treatment with renewed vigor. Sarah, my nurse, was a godsend, helping me through the worst days with gentle care and unwavering support. 2 more rounds of chemotherapy followed. They were brutal, leaving me weak and nauseous, but I refused to give up. All the while, my phone remained silent. No calls, no texts from Mia. I tried to tell myself it was for the best, that I needed to focus on my health, but the silence hurt more than I cared to admit. Months passed. Then, during a routine checkup, my doctor smiled at me, really smiled, for the first time since my diagnosis. "The cancer's receding, Regina," he said. "You're not out of the woods yet, but this is very, very good news." I left the hospital that day feeling lighter than I had in months. The world seemed brighter somehow, full of possibilities I'd thought were lost to me forever. I was thin, almost gaunt, after months of illness. My clothes hung off me like sacks. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like myself again. I started taking short walks in the park near my house, feeling the sun on my face, the breeze in what remained of my hair. One afternoon, I stood in front of my closet, realizing none of my old clothes fit me anymore. Instead of feeling sad, I felt liberated. It was time for a change, inside and out. I spent a day sorting through my wardrobe, making piles to donate to a local homeless shelter. As I packed up bags of my old life, I felt like I was shedding more than just clothes. I was letting go of the old Regina, the one who'd let herself be walked all over, who'd put everyone else's needs before her own. Looking around my big, empty house, I realized it no longer fit the person I'd become. It was time for a change. With my savings providing a comfortable cushion, I made a bold decision: I wouldn't return to work. Instead, I'd downsize and focus on living. I contacted a realtor and put my house on the market. It sold quickly, and I found a small, cozy apartment that felt like it was made for me. It was perfect for one person, bright, manageable, and full of potential for a fresh start. I invested the remaining money from the house sale, feeling financially secure for the first time in years. Life was good, peaceful. I spent my days exploring my new neighborhood, trying new hobbies, and simply enjoying the act of being alive. Then, 3 months after I'd settled into my new life, I received an unexpected call. It was the realtor who'd handled the sale of my old house. "Mrs. Walker," he said, sounding uncomfortable, "the new owners of your old house are having some issues. They've asked for your contact information. Is it all right if I give them your number?" Curious and a little concerned, I agreed. Shortly after, my phone rang again. This time, it was the new owner, a Mr. Thompson. "Mrs. Walker," he began, his voice tense, "I'm sorry to bother you, but something strange happened today. A young woman tried to break into our house. She tried to use a key at first, then started trying to force the door open. When I confronted her, she became hysterical, screaming that this was her house, that she should inherit it after her mother's death." The blood drained from my face. Mia. It had to be Mia. She thought I was dead and had come to claim her inheritance. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Thompson," I said, my voice shaking. I think that might have been my daughter. We've been estranged. She must have assumed." "Your daughter?" He sounded shocked. "But she said you were dead." "I've been very ill, we haven't spoken in months," I explained, not wanting to go into details. "Mr. Thompson, could I ask a favor? If she comes back, would you call me?" He agreed, and we ended the call. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to continue with my new, peaceful life. But I knew I couldn't. This confrontation had been coming for a long time. It was time to face Mia, to finally say all the things I should have said years ago. The call came sooner than I expected. Just a day after my conversation with Mr. Thompson, my phone rang. "She's here," Mr. Thompson said, his voice tense. "And she's causing quite a scene." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "I'm on my way." The drive to my old house felt surreal. As I pulled up, I could hear the shouting before I even got out of the car. Mia's voice, shrill and angry, carried across the yard. "This is my house," she was screaming at the Thompsons, who stood on the porch looking shocked and frightened. "Get out now." I stepped out of my car, and for a moment, the world seemed to freeze. Mia turned, her eyes landing on me. The look of shock on her face quickly morphed into one of fury. "You," she spat. "You're supposed to be dead." I felt a calm settle over me, a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding around us. "I'm sorry to disappoint you, Mia," I said, my voice steady. Mia's face contorted with rage. "What's going on? Why are these people in our house?" "It's not our house anymore, Mia," I explained. "I sold it." Her eyes widened in disbelief, then narrowed in anger. "You can't do that. It was supposed to be mine. I was supposed to inherit it when you died." I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. "I'm sorry I inconvenienced you by surviving." Mia's face turned red. "You don't understand. I have debts, I need money." I shook my head, acutely aware of the Thompsons and the small crowd of neighbors who had gathered to watch the spectacle. "I don't owe you anything, Mia. You abandoned me when I was fighting for my life. You wished me dead. Why should I help you now?" "Because you're my mother," she screamed. "You're supposed to take care of me." I felt a sadness wash over me, but I stood my ground. "No, Mia, not anymore. You're an adult. Your choices, your consequences." Mia's face twisted into an ugly sneer. "You know what? Dad was right to leave you. You're useless. It would have been better if you had died." Her words hung in the air, shocking even the onlookers into silence. But this time, they didn't cut me to the core. This time, I felt only pity for the angry, bitter woman my daughter had become. Without another word, I turned and walked back to my car. Before getting in, I addressed the Thompsons. "If she comes back or tries to break in again, call the police," I said, gesturing towards Mia. "She has no right to be here." As I drove away, I caught a last glimpse of Mia in my rearview mirror, her face a mask of shock and fury. But for the first time, her anger didn't touch me. I was free. In the months that followed, I embraced my new life fully. I took up painting, finding joy in splashing colors across canvas. My health continued to improve, and each day I felt stronger, more alive. Mia never called or tried to contact me again. Sometimes I felt a pang of sadness for the relationship we'd lost, but mostly I felt relief. I had spent so many years trying to fill the bottomless pit of her needs. Now, finally, I was living for myself.
Hi, I'm Jessica William, a 29-year-old marketing executive at Tech Vibe, one of Boston's fastest-growing startups. 3 years ago, I thought I had everything figured out. I met my husband Charles at a tech conference where I was presenting our company's latest marketing campaign. Charles, a brilliant software engineer, seemed captivated by my talk on digital marketing strategies. Within a year, we were married, and I believed I'd found someone who supported my dreams. "You're like a female Steve Jobs," he'd say, making me blush with pride. Then his parents started visiting more frequently, and things took a turn. My father-in-law, Matthew, a big-shot real estate developer, would sit across the dinner table with a smug smile that I grew to despise. "Jessica, still playing office while other women are building families?" He'd jab. "I'm building both a career and a family, Matthew," I'd respond, gripping my fork tightly. My mother-in-law, Barbara, would just adjust her pearl necklace, avoiding eye contact. My best friend Rachel saw right through them. At our housewarming party, she pulled me aside after Matthew lectured everyone about traditional family values. "That man gives me serious control freak vibes," she whispered. Later, I vented to Charles about Matthew's remarks, but he brushed it off. "Dad's just old school, don't take it personally." My parents, Mike and Linda, were a breath of fresh air whenever they visited. They'd remind me of the value of chasing my dreams. "You're killing it, sweetie," Dad would beam, while Mom would share stories of her own career battles. "Remember, Jessica, a woman's worth isn't measured by her cooking skills," she'd say after another tense dinner with my in-laws. But Matthew's jabs kept coming. At every family gathering, he'd belittle my job. "Marketing, isn't that just making pretty pictures on Facebook? When are you giving Charles some real happiness? A woman's true calling is in the home, don't you think?" Eventually, I noticed subtle changes in Charles. He'd make odd comments about couples where the wife stayed home. "They seem so happy, don't they?" Rachel warned me, men like Matthew don't stop until they get their way. I brushed it off, insisting Charles would never let his dad control our marriage, but the knot in my stomach was hard to ignore. At the Williams' annual Easter gathering, I overheard Matthew in the study, offering Charles a VP position at his company. "A real man provides enough so his wife doesn't need to work," he said. "Your marriage is becoming the family joke." I felt sick, but stayed quiet. Later that week, Charles suggested, "Maybe you could consult part-time. We could travel more." "Quit my job?" I asked, shocked. "I just landed the Samsung account." He shrugged. "We don't need both incomes." When I showed Rachel the text I found on Charles' phone, "Handle your home situation and the VP position is yours. Barbara will help Jessica adjust." She was furious. "This is manipulation," she said. "We need to document everything." Soon after, Karen, Charles' cousin, reached out over LinkedIn saying, "I saw your post about the Samsung deal. There's something you should know." Over coffee, she told me how Uncle Matthew pressured her mother to quit teaching. When she refused, he spread rumors that she was neglecting her family and the marriage didn't survive. "Matthew's been telling everyone you're too ambitious and neglecting Charles," Karen warned. The signs were everywhere. Charles started having regular business lunches with his dad, and our joint account showed a suspicious $50,000 transfer. "What's this for?" I asked, my voice tight. "It's Dad's new development project," Charles replied. You didn't think to discuss it with me first. He waved me off. Stop being so controlling, Jessica. With Rachel's help, I started a paper trail, forwarding texts, emails, everything. And girl, she urged, get your own bank account. The final straw came at a family dinner when Barbara pulled me aside. Matthew mentioned you've been missing work to go shopping. Is everything all right? I stared at her, appalled. What? I'd never. She gave a sympathetic smile. It's okay. We all struggle with work-life balance. That's why I chose family. That night, I confronted Charles. Your dad's spreading lies about me. He's just concerned. Maybe if you spent more time at home. More time doing what? Being barefoot and pregnant? I snapped. Don't be dramatic. Dad's offering me an amazing opportunity, with strings attached to my career. I called Karen again. How did your mom handle it? She didn't, Karen said grimly. And that's why they won. You need to be smarter, collect evidence. These men think they're untouchable, so they always leave a paper trail. Little did they know, I was already building my case. The missing money in our account was just the beginning. I hired a financial investigator who traced our missing funds. The investment in William Enterprises, it's actually funding a shell company, the investigator explained, handing me documents. Karen called shortly after with more bombshells. The feds are investigating Uncle Matthew for fraud, she revealed. That development project, it's a massive Ponzi scheme. Later, I got a text from Tom, Charles' coworker. Heads up, saw Charles interviewing at Apex Corp yesterday. Thought you should know. That night, I confronted Charles, laying out the bank statements. Where's the rest of our savings? You're overreacting. Dad's project is solid. The project under federal investigation. His face went white. What are you talking about? Cut the act, Charles. I know about the shell company and the Apex interview. You're spying on me now. He exploded. You're just as career-obsessed as they say. Then my work phone rang. It was Maria, my boss. Jessica, we received some troubling emails from a Matthew William, claiming you've been leaking company data. Matthew has no connection to Tech Vibe, I said, my voice shaking. This is harassment. I showed Maria the documentation Rachel helped me compile. At an emergency meeting, I laid everything out. After reviewing the evidence, Maria turned to me. These accusations are clearly harassment. We're behind you, Jessica. That night, Charles was packing a bag. Dad says I can stay at their guest house while we figure things out. Figure out what, Charles? How to destroy my career. You're choosing your job over our marriage. No, you're choosing your father's manipulation over your wife. Karen called with one last piece of information. There are more victims, Jessica. Aunt Patricia. Matthew got her fired from her law firm. And Charles' ex-girlfriend, Jenny, she lost her teaching job after refusing to quit. How many women? At least 5. It's his pattern. Pressure, lies, then financial blackmail. Charles made one last attempt. Dad's willing to forget everything if I just what? Become another trophy wife for him to control. He's trying to protect our family. No, he's trying to protect his ego. And those missing funds, they're funding his fraud. You don't understand business. I understand enough to know the feds are circling. Get out, Charles. I'm done. After you left, Barbara called, crying. I should have warned you. I saw what Matthew did to the others. Why didn't you stop him? He controlled all our money. I couldn't. I looked at the evidence spread across my desk. Bank statements, emails, testimonies from other women Matthew had sabotaged. He'd finally messed with the wrong daughter-in-law. The divorce papers landed on my desk the same morning the FBI raided William Enterprises. Your documents were crucial to our investigation, Agent Thompson confirmed. Matthew's fraud scheme goes back decades. As I watched the news coverage, my phone buzzed. It was Barbara. I'm staying with my sister. I finally filed for divorce. He drained our accounts yesterday, but I have copies of everything. Use my lawyer. She's a shark. And Jessica, I'm proud of you. After 30 years, I found my spine. Did you hear? Rachel burst into my office, waving a newspaper. Charles got fired. Security escorted him out. His company found out about his connection to the fraud. He's radioactive in tech now. Nobody will touch him. They're even investigating his old projects for data breaches. Maria called an emergency meeting with the executive team. With our Samsung campaign success hitting $100 million and recent events showing your integrity, we're promoting you to Chief Marketing Officer. The board vote was unanimous. The good news kept coming. Karen rallied other victims for federal testimony. 2 years later, after a board meeting, I was leaving the office when a familiar face appeared in the lobby. "Jessica, please, can we talk?" "Just 5 minutes," Charles pleaded. "Security. I'm working retail now. At the mall. I was wrong. Dad controlled everything. I lost everything." "Like you tried controlling me? Like you stole our savings," I said, my voice cold. "That's the exit, Charles. Use it." The next day, during a Women in Tech mentoring session, a news alert popped up on my phone. Breaking: Matthew Williams sentenced to 15 years for fraud. Judge cites systematic abuse of power and trust. One of the interns raised her hand. "Is it true you helped bring down a corporate criminal while launching a global marketing campaign?" I smiled. "I brought down more than that. I brought down a system that thought it could crush women's dreams." Now, who's ready to learn about breaking glass ceilings? Karen and I launched a support network for career women facing family and societal pressures. At our first event, the convention center was packed. "Remember when Uncle Matthew thought he was untouchable?" Karen laughed at the launch party. "Now he's trading designer suits for prison orange." Barbara was there too, thriving in her new real estate agency, a testament to her newfound freedom. Charles was folding sweaters at the mall. Matthew was making license plates. Rachel raised a glass. To Karma, and to my best friend, the newest member of Forbes 40 Under 40. The following week, Maria approved our new mentorship initiative with a 7-figure budget. "Your program is exactly what this industry needs. The board wants to take it national." Standing in my corner office, I looked at the framed headline on the wall. "William Enterprises Collapse Reveals Decades of Fraud. Women Leaders Emerge Stronger." I smiled, feeling the impact of what we built. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's making sure you're not the last success story. Let them try to stop us now. Now let's turn the question to you. What would you do if you discovered your spouse wasn't just betraying you, but actively conspiring with their family to destroy your career? Would you gather evidence quietly, like Jessica, or confront them immediately? And here's an even deeper question. If your spouse's parent was trying to control your life through financial manipulation, would you try to save your marriage first, or protect your career? Let's talk about that $50,000 transfer Charles made behind Jessica's back. Was that the biggest red flag, or was it when he started suggesting she should quit her job? At what point do you think Jessica should have realized her marriage was beyond saving? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hey there, I'm Patricia, a 25-year-old freelance graphic designer with a passion for visual storytelling. Right now, I'm living with my older sister, Linda, in our childhood home. It's not exactly the dream setup for someone my age, but hey, it's affordable, and I honestly enjoy Linda's company. Well, most of the time. One evening, while we're lounging in our shared bedroom, Linda says, "Patricia, don't you think this room could use a makeover?" I look around at the faded posters and the mismatched furniture. "Yeah, I guess it's a bit dated. What do you have in mind?" Her eyes light up. "I was thinking something sleek and modern. Professional, you know?" "Professional?" I repeat, raising an eyebrow. "It's a bedroom, not an office." "Well, we both work from home sometimes," she says, undeterred. "Wouldn't it be nice to have a space that's both comfortable and productive?" I shrug, not entirely convinced but not wanting to dampen her enthusiasm. "Sure, I guess we could explore it." The next day, we head to a furniture store, and Linda is like a woman on a mission, zeroing in on the priciest, most modern pieces. "Ooh, look at this desk," she exclaims. "It's nice, I admit, but where would we put our vanity?" She waves a dismissive hand. "We'll figure that out later. Oh, and look at this minimalist bookshelf." As we move through the store, I notice she's making most of the decisions. Every time I point out something I like, she finds a reason why it doesn't fit. "What about this rug? It'd add a nice pop of color." Too busy. We're going for clean and simple, remember?" By the end of our shopping trip, I feel like I barely had a say in any of it, but I remind myself that Linda's always had a better eye for design, right? Later that week, I meet up with my best friend Maya for coffee and tell her about the redecoration plans. Her brow furrows in concern. Patricia, don't you think Linda's being a bit controlling? It's your room too. I feel a pang of defensiveness. Oh, come on, Maya. She's just excited. Besides, she knows what she's doing. If you say so, Maya replies, unconvinced. Just make sure you're not getting steamrolled, okay? I laugh it off, but as I walk home, a nagging doubt creeps in. Am I letting Linda take over? Nah, it'll be great to have a fresh new space. What could go wrong? Little did I know, that was just the beginning of a roller coaster that would test my patience, my relationship with my sister, and ultimately, my sense of self-worth. A week later, I had to leave town for a big client project. As I packed, Linda assured me she'd handle the redecorating. Don't worry about a thing, Patricia, she said with a smile. I've got it all under control. You'll love it when you get back. Despite a twinge of uneasiness, I pushed it aside. Linda was the design-savvy sister. What could go wrong? When I returned, exhausted but eager to see our new space, I opened the bedroom door and froze. The room was unrecognizable. Gone were the cozy throw pillows, the colorful art prints, the warm lighting. Instead, it looked like a minimalist office, white walls, sleek furniture, and not a trace of my personality. Surprise, Linda exclaimed. What do you think? I stood there, struggling to hide my shock. It's very clean. I stammered, grasping for words that wouldn't hurt her feelings. Oblivious, she led me around the room. Look at this ergonomic chair, and check out the built-in charging stations. Oh, and this desk, it's big enough for both of our laptops. As she rambled on about productivity and efficiency, I felt myself disappearing. Linda, I finally managed to say, where are my things? Oh, don't worry, I packed them up neatly, she said, gesturing toward the closet. My heart sank as I realized all my personal items, my art supplies, my books, even my favorite throw blanket, had been packed away, out of sight. But where am I supposed to work on my illustrations? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Linda's brow furrowed in mild annoyance. Well, you can use the desk when I'm not using it, or there's always the living room couch. Over the next few days, I watched helplessly as Linda claimed our bedroom as her exclusive workspace. She'd wake up early, park herself at the desk, and stay there late into the night. Every time I tried to use the space, she had a reason why she needed it more. Sorry, Patricia, I got a big presentation tomorrow. You don't mind working in the living room, right? Or, oops, I forgot to mention I have a video call in 5 minutes. Could you clear out for a bit? The final straw came one afternoon when I returned home to find our bedroom door locked. I knocked, confused. Linda, are you in there? Yeah, just a sec, she called out. I heard rustling and then the click of the lock. She opened the door a crack, looking frazzled. Sorry, I was on an important call. Did you need something? I stared at her, disbelief washing over me. Linda, this is my room too. Why was the door locked? She had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. Oh, I just needed some privacy for this call. You understand, right? Fighting back tears of frustration, I turned away. This wasn't just about a room anymore. It was about respect, boundaries, and standing up for myself. I retreated to the living room, my new unofficial workspace, and pulled out my phone. I needed advice, and I knew exactly who to call. Maya, it's me. Remember when you said Linda might be a bit controlling? Well, you're not going to believe what's happened. After spilling everything to Maya, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. She listened patiently, then said, Patricia, you need to stand up for yourself. This is your home too. I knew she was right. Gathering my courage, I approached Linda that evening. Hey, can we talk about the room situation? Linda barely looked up from her laptop. What about it? Well, I feel like I've been pushed out of my own space. I can't work or relax in there anymore. She sighed dramatically. Patricia, you're being oversensitive. The room works perfectly now. It's not my fault if you can't adapt to a more professional environment. Her dismissive tone made my blood boil, but I held my tongue and walked away. Over the next few days, I started noticing other little things, how Linda always chose the TV shows, borrowed my clothes without asking, and volunteered me for favors without consulting me first. Then, one day, I overheard her on the phone with a friend. Yeah, I totally got Patricia out of the room. Now I have this amazing office all to myself. She's so easy to manipulate, it's almost sad. My heart shattered. This wasn't just thoughtlessness, it was deliberate. I retreated to the bathroom, fighting back tears as I splashed water on my face. Enough was enough. No more Miss Nice Sister. I decided to start keeping a log of Linda's behavior. The times she locked me out, the snide comments, the way she dominated our shared spaces. It felt sneaky but also empowering. For once, I was taking control. Then came the discovery that changed everything. While searching for a missing bill, I stumbled upon our shared bank statement. My eyes widened as I scrolled through the transactions. Expensive lunches, shopping sprees, salon visits, all charged to our joint account, which was supposed to be for household expenses only. "Hey, Linda," I called out, my voice shaking slightly. "Can you explain these charges?" Linda sauntered over, glancing at the screen. "Oh, those. Just some work expenses. No big deal." "Work expenses?" I asked incredulously. "From Nordstrom and that fancy sushi place downtown?" She shrugged nonchalantly. "You know, client meetings and stuff. About to look the part." I stared at her, seeing her clearly for the first time. This wasn't my loving sister. This was someone who saw me as nothing more than a convenience, a doormat to be used. "That's it," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm moving out." Linda's eyes widened in shock. "What? Don't be ridiculous, Patricia. Where would you go?" "But I am leaving," I replied, surprising even myself with the firmness in my voice. "I'm done being taken advantage of." As I started mentally planning my exit, a whirlwind of emotions washed over me. Fear of the unknown, sadness for the sister I thought I had, but mostly an overwhelming sense of relief. For the first time in months, I felt like I could finally breathe. I picked up my phone, hands trembling slightly. "Maya, it's me again. Remember how you said I could crash at your place if I needed to? Well, I think it's time to take you up on that offer." As I hung up, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. The woman staring back looked different, stronger, more determined. I realized that this wasn't just about moving out of a toxic situation. It was about reclaiming my life, my space, and my self-respect. From the other room, I could hear Linda's voice, already on another work call, oblivious to the seismic shift that had just occurred. But that was okay. She'd find out soon enough, and this time, I wouldn't be backing down. The next week was a blur of hushed phone calls and hurried coffee meetups with Maya. Planning my escape like a secret mission. Every time Linda left the house, I would sneak around, packing bits and pieces of my life into boxes. I felt like a secret agent in my own home, trying to stay one step ahead of her. Finally, moving day arrived. My stomach churned as I heard Linda's alarm go off. This was it. I took a deep breath and knocked on her door. "Linda, we need to talk." She opened the door, irritation etched on her face. "Patricia, I'm busy." "What is it?" I held up a folder. "I know about the financial stuff. The personal expenses, the misuse of our joint account. It stops now." Her face went pale. "What are you talking about? You're being ridiculous." "Am I?" I asked, opening the folder to show her the bank statements. "I have proof right here, and I'm done. I'm moving out today." Linda's demeanor changed in an instant. "Come on, Patricia, don't be hasty. We can work this out. You know you need me." But I stood my ground. "No, I don't. I need respect, and you clearly can't give me that. I expect you to repay every cent you took for personal use." Her eyes narrowed, venomous words spilling from her lips. "You ungrateful little, after everything I've done for you. You'd be nothing without me." "That's where you're wrong," I replied, surprised at how calm I felt. "I'm going to be just fine without you." I grabbed my bags and walked out, Linda's angry shouts fading behind me. Maya was waiting for me outside, and as we drove away, I felt a massive weight lift off my shoulders. At Maya's place, I settled into my new room. It wasn't huge, but it was mine. I sat at my desk by the window, arranging my art supplies just the way I like them. "How does it feel?" Maya asked from the doorway. I looked around, a smile spreading across my face. "It feels like freedom." That night, I sat at my new desk and sketched for the first time in months. Ideas flowed freely, uninhibited by the fear of judgment or interruption. For the first time in ages, I felt alive and creative, like the real Patricia was finally re-emerging. I never thought I'd have to choose between family and self-respect, but I did. Would you have done the same in my shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments.